Welcome to Five Stripe Weekly, everyone. It's time. The cup is on the line, and doing so, we have a massive, giant-sized cup preview for you coming up later in the show. And the season's not over, but silly season has already started, and we catch you up on all the rumors from this week. All that and more coming up.
Welcome to the show, Five Stripe fam. I'm AJ. This is Tanner McLeod. Before we get into it, become part of the notification squad by hitting the bell next to the subscribe button on YouTube, or hop over from Facebook and subscribe. Before we get into the biggest match of our Five Stripe lives, let's get into the news. And December 3rd has been declared Atlanta United Day by the Atlanta City Council. Amazing stuff, and what scenes they were at the City Hall. Everybody that's in the City Hall getting together and singing "We Ready" and all the chants. It was a sight to see.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I'm a bit nervy naming a day after a team. Before they finish everything off and win a cup, I would rather it be December 8th if you win the dang thing. But hey,
it was solidarity.
Awesome. It was a show of solidarity by the city to really bring them in. But maybe I wish the city of Atlanta would wait to claim them again until something else happens. Anyway, all Atlanta banter aside, I think it was really cool. And to see something like that happening in City Hall, I mean, I think Atlanta really has adopted this team. And heck, win a championship, Falcons, who are they?
Oh, but no, I get what you're saying, and I get the gripes about it, but I think it would look completely different if they had done it, December 9th or something like that. It's a bit strange, and it looks completely different as a show of solidarity, doesn't it? I mean, it's like...
Yeah, I guess. I get it. I just don't... I don't know. I get it. But to be fair, Atlanta United deserves it. They've meant so much to this city since they've come on the scene in the last, obviously 4, but 2 years of playing. The number of people who have bought in, become fans of this game and fans of this team. This city is going to be, red, black, and gold, and red, black, and bold, hopefully, on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see it everywhere. And I think everyone who knows about it is going to have their TV sets on. And congrats, MLS. You're probably about to get the most watched MLS Cup final in your history because you've got two massive teams with great fan bases. And to see that fan base and that team recognized the way they were by City Hall, it was really something special.
Agreed. And, a big part of that is the supporters. And the supporters have been asked by Doug Robertson what the TIFO is going to be for the MLS Cup final. They're very mum about it.
Can you blame them?
Yeah, keeping it very close to the vest. And but I think they said pretty much that, it's going to be good. And so we can't say anything. We won't say anything. But I think we all look forward to what it might be.
Well, if they think it's going to be that, I can only imagine what they can do to top the last one. Because the last one was incredible. And if they have something in that realm planned again, I'm sure it'll be absolutely incredible. And I know they've been working night and day. And you've got to bet they've had something planned for a while just in case we got here. So I'm really excited to see what they got. And just going to be another one of those layers on match day that shows why Atlanta not only deserves to win MLS Cup, but why we're the heart of MLS.
Right. And, even if it were so that they planned it, they had to put it into action in a very, very small turnaround. So very much props to all the guys, part of the TIFO crew in the supporters groups that have, are going to put it all together. I'm sure a lot of work still is yet to be done. And so if you are watching this earlier in the week, then still they need help. And if you want to donate funds or offer your volunteer help, then please do. They
would really gladly take it.
Yeah. But next piece of news is this Opta Best of MLS 11, and it's very complimentary towards Atlanta United in this one, where we have Parkhurst and Miggy and Jose Martinez making this 11. So it's looking good. You have the likes of Stephen Fry and Zusi and Carlos Vela.
Not shocking there.
Yeah, and Lodero of Sounders as well. It's a good 11, and no shock there that an Atlanta United heavy 11. But in this who scored one, pretty ridiculous. El Munir gets in from Orlando, and the only person that gets in is Miggy. And
who knows? Some of these things, statistics, I don't know. But for me, you lose all credibility if you don't have the record-setting goal scorer of Major League Soccer in your best 11. He scored more goals than anyone ever has in a single season. And how is he not in your best 11?
Zlatan is in his place. It's very interesting.
Well, I get Zlatan being there, but you can have two strikers. Figure out a way to play with two strikers. Really? Come on.
Yeah, but we'll move on from that. And on Monday, we found out our Concacaf Champions League opponent in the round of 16 for 2019, and it is Costa Rican side CS Herediano. And they're a very actually very good team. They're probably the third most winning team in Costa Rica's Primera División. And they also play in a very tiny stadium. It's 8,700 people.
All seats. No seats. All standing.
No seats.
It's basically a bull ring with some field. There's no way.
Box.
There's no way they end up playing that match.
Exactly. I think it's got to be played at probably a San Jose National Stadium, something like that. And I think they probably have in the past because they've been in this Champions League before. And they've done decently well. They haven't won it yet, but it's they're not to be taken lightly. I think they're probably the second best team that we could have faced in this whole matchup, or that we've drawn. But it's also one of those teams that has a coach from the probably top team in this competition, in Pot 2 anyway, Saprissa, another Costa Rican side. And so it's definitely, we have our work cut out for us, but it will be interesting.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on Costa Rican football by any stretch of the imagination. It's not going to be easy for Atlanta because this is probably going to be your first competitive game of the season.
Yeah.
You're going to be having a new head coach. So that's going to be something.
New system.
System I think will be relatively the same in terms of how we play. It's still going to be an attacking style. It's going to have, they want to hire someone who's going to play a system.
Some continuity,
that's familiar to these players. You're not going to throw it and tear it all up and change the way that you play. You find a manager that fits the style of play that you want.
But without a Miggy, without players like that, it's going to be very much changed.
It's going to be a different side. You don't know who all you're going to have, and you could very well be betting some new players on the road. And the negative is if it is moved to the National Stadium, which is, in all intents and purposes, a positive for both traveling Atlanta United fans, and you're going to be playing at a better stadium and a better pitch for Atlanta United. You're probably going to have more Costa Rican fans there. Yep. It's going to be loud. It's tough. It's, like I said, the beginning of the season, so it's not ideal. You're going to bring it back to your first home game, but the Benz is the beginning of the season, so it's going to be a challenge. I think it's an interesting challenge and a welcome challenge for Atlanta United to see what kind of club we can be and how big we can be on the continental scale. So hopefully it'll be a great trip for a lot of Atlanta United fans, and I know we'll preview that match when it gets closer to that.
For sure. But yeah, in terms of that little turnaround from when the Cup ends and when Champions League is going to start, I'm sure that preseason is probably probably a little under like 5 weeks, pretty much. You have a little bit of the holidays as pretty much, that's it. That's your break. That's
tough.
Yeah, it's not going to be very easy for the players, and the recovery. They will have to really recover fast and take every sort of break that they can, but and maybe not eat too much of that Christmas ham or Argentinian beef or whatever it is. But yeah. And but their coach Hernan Medford, he was like I mentioned, he was the coach of Saprissa, and he had actually won this competition with them in the past, and so it's a guy that knows this competition very well. That makes it even doubly harder, and he's very keen on playing Atlanta United. He has pretty much said that he loves the atmosphere and what Atlanta is doing. And he knows a little bit about us, that Tata will be there, and it's I think we have our work cut out for us. But yeah, and with that though, Greg Garza has spoken about his excitement for the competition again. He had played in it with Tijuana, but he's excited to maybe there's a little bit more promise in a sense with Atlanta United. And if Atlanta United and MLS side is able to win it, it really puts MLS into just a different light completely altogether on the world stage, because we also, if we win this competition, we get to play in the Club World Cup, and that is huge, prestigious stuff, depending on who you ask probably. But yeah, and that really, I think, would put Atlanta United into the forefront.
For sure. Absolutely. If you have a chance to end up playing in the Club World Cup against a side like a Real Madrid or something like that. I think the weird thing about the Club World Cup is when it actually is, a lot of people have no idea when it is, where it is, and because it moves around, it's usually at some point in time in December, which is why things are so interesting with the Super Classico in Argentina, because basically whoever wins that plays in the Club World Cup next week.
Right.
So that's why they're going to play it somewhere other than South America to make it easier and because it's crazy. But, you know, you win the Club World Cup. What's crazy for Atlanta United is, say you win Concacaf Champions League next season, and then you make a run to MLS Cup, say you win it again. You would play all the way to December, and then immediately after you finish that, have to go and play another competition in somewhere in the world. After your season's now over, you have to go play more games, and then you have to come back less than a month later for Champions League again, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. So
we need a lot of players.
You need a lot of players at that point. But, you know, I think for Atlanta United, this is a very unique opportunity to show what they can, you know, on the continental scale and potentially the global scale. We already do enough as is in Major League Soccer. But again, this is a really big opportunity to grow the brand even more and to fly the flag for American soccer.
Right. And I think we absolutely go for it. I think we put our money into doing Champions League right, and then, you know, we still have a very, very deep team as well. The Atlanta United 2 guys can step in early on in the season. I think we'll try to see how far we can go, but hopefully
there's two ways it can go, really. I mean, you saw how Red Bull handled it, and they did really well, obviously winning the Supporters' Shield. Then you have Toronto, who won the MLS Cup, then made a run in the Champions League,
deep,
and then their season kind of fell apart because they were so exhausted at the beginning and fell behind. So it's going to be a very tricky scenario for a first-year, you know, manager at a new club to have to navigate. So, you know, it's just one of those things that comes with success, and Atlanta United will have to navigate it successfully. But with everything they've done so far, from front office down, I think they'll be in a great position to do so.
Right. But let's get into the rumors of the week, and there was this kind of silly rumor about Arthur Blank, you know, with all the Miguel Almiron to Newcastle United ties, and, you know, the owner of Newcastle United, Mike Ashley, pretty much posited that, oh, you know, maybe an Arthur Blank and a consortium of his people would buy Newcastle United in the January transfer window.
Well, I don't know if he specifically mentioned Arthur Blank in his interview. It was kind of hinted that he was speaking to someone who was an American, but I don't think he specifically named who he was, because he was on BBC Radio talking about this. And for those who are unfamiliar with the situation, everyone in Newcastle wishes they could kill Mike Ashley. They despise him. It is a one-club city. Newcastle, contrary to what many might believe, is a massive club. They fill St. James's Park, or Sport Direct Arena, whatever you want to call it, with 55,000 every single week, despite being terrible, and their owner spending nothing. He doesn't spend money at all. This is the Premier League. He spent £250,000 last summer. That's it. He never spends, which is why I've always shot down the Miggy to Newcastle rumors. And he wants to sell this club as quickly as possible, but the problem is no one knows what they want to pay for it, because will the club get relegated? Will they have a manager? Who the player's going to be? There's no idea what's going on. For me, having seen what Arthur Blank does, being in a sense part of AMBSC, and seeing the way that that whole company is run and having interactions with those people, that's not something that he's just going to jump right in and do. It's not a smart investment, especially for a man at his age, to what it takes to run a Premier League club. You think it takes a lot to run Atlanta United? Try running a club in the most expensive soccer league in the world and see what happens. I don't think he has the time or the desire to do that.
And it was pretty much refuted by Steve Cannon, the CEO of AMB Group. And so essentially, he pretty much said that these reports have no merit in the AJC. And I mean, that pretty much kind of dampens this rumor. But of course, sometimes when there's smoke, there's fire. But I think I agree with those sentiments. But it's also, I mean, Arthur Blank, like, he loves being part of a community and growing it from kind of that grassroots level. And I feel like this kind of project just doesn't
I don't
suit
see him saying, you know what I want to do when I'm, you know, older in my life? Spend a lot of time in Northeast England. No disrespect to Northeast England, but this is Arthur Blank. He lives in Atlanta. He doesn't want to be jetting halfway across the world every other weekend to watch Newcastle.
And well, you know, there could be a group of, you know, so maybe a you know, former general manager or like a sporting director of Chelsea has been mentioned as someone that could, you know, be someone that takes over that that kind of day-to-day operations or something like that. A Darren Eales type of figure, if you will. But I still don't think, you know, he would want to put his money into a project like this where he really has no connection to it. And if he did, he should do something where, you know, he can get, if he buys low and then he, you know, it's like a maybe championship side or a League One side, and then promotes them, gets them promoted. I mean, those fans would love him forever for one, and then, you know, you
to be fair, I think all Newcastle fans, what he would have to do for them to love him is just spend some money and buy a couple players, and Newcastle fans would worship him as the second
but
coming.
You think Mike Ashley's gonna sell to him on the cheap? I mean,
no,
probably
I mean,
not.
it's Mike Ashley we're talking about. So for me, at the end of the day, I think Arthur Blank is not going anywhere as far as buying other clubs are concerned. I think he's concerned about one soccer club, and that's Atlanta United FC.
Right, and I think, so we throw cold water all over this this rumor. It's just it's pretty ridiculous to begin with, but and we've had a lot of Newcastle people try to talk to us about it, and it's just, I mean,
sorry guys, it's not happening. I know you just want him gone. It's not happening.
And getting to the next bit of rumors, this next one comes from this source called Doble Amaria, and it is definitely kind of a divisive source. It's sometimes right, sometimes not right. Which probably speaks about a lot of the sources, but this one, it's got to be taken with a grain of salt. But President Darren Eales and Technical Director Carlos Bocanegra are apparently in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and they have pretty much shortlisted 3 pretty much head coach candidates that they are going to interview. And actually, the main one that they are targeting is Guillermo Barros Schelotto of Boca Juniors, who has some unfinished business that he has to deal with the
currently trying to figure out where he's going to play the second leg of the Copa Libertadores.
Right, indeed. And another guy that they're looking at is Gabriel Militos, a former Barcelona player, and then you have Jorge Sampaoli, who's very divisive as well, formerly of the Argentinian national team as well.
Don't forget his spells in charge of Sevilla and Chile.
Yes.
He's had history in his success. I mean, success in his history.
For sure. But I think the latest part of that leaves a lot of bad taste in those Argentinian fans' mouths, for sure. But Schelotto is the main guy that they're targeting, and they're trying to interview and maybe, get some negotiations in, apparently. And so, I mean, it's a guy that, plays a very attacking type of style. I think we've kind of gone over him in previous episodes before, but it's apparently the main target. But they're also, if he fails, then, or if they fail to negotiate a contract with him, then it would be, maybe a Gabriel Milito. But there's also, talk of Jorge Sampaoli wanting this job, wanting the Atlanta United gig, because, I mean, it's probably one of the more, I think, attractive ones as a manager. You have a top-down system that is pretty much as top class as they come.
Really, all he has to do is step in and manage the team. Yeah. That's your role for Atlanta United. You have a clear, defined style of play that the Atlanta United wants you to mold to, or they will look to a manager who plays that type of system. Mm-hmm. And in his club football career, we'll take Sevilla. He was only there for around a year, but they finished 4th in La Liga that season. Mm-hmm. They scored a lot of goals. They played attractive attacking football. They had a positive goal difference of 20, mm-hmm. which in La Liga you can get hammered pretty hard by the tides above you. So mm-hmm. he played good football with a team in a tough division. Yeah. So you have to give him credit for that. Obviously, he struggled mightily with Argentina. Yeah. For me, I give him a little bit of the pass only because the AFA is a nightmare right now. He took over in a very, very dire situation where they were struggling to qualify for the World Cup at all. And then obviously you saw what happened at said World Cup. So he has that stand there. But you can't forget the fact that he also beat a Tata Martino managed Argentina side with a less talented, twice though, with a less talented Chile side in the Copa America. Okay, Copa America final. Sorry, I don't know. I was struggling there. So, and he managed a Chile side to be pretty damn decent in the 2014 World Cup. Yeah. So he's a solid manager who has a successful history. His just most recent success and his most recent job obviously leaves a lot to be desired.
Right, and also Messi is, he pretty much retired, and maybe the reason was Sampaoli, but
he retired before because of the fans, so I take that with a grain of salt.
It's true.
Mean, Sampaoli kind of does look like a madman with his tight V-neck sweaters and tattoos all over his body, but I mean, For me personally, if Darren Eales and Carlos Bocanegra are taking a meeting with someone, they've done their research, they've done their homework, and they wouldn't be doing it for no reason whatsoever.
Right. And so if Schelotto is the guy, then I think he's a guy that has found success. And I mean, yes, every one of these candidates is pretty divisive. There's something about each that leaves a little bit to be desired, because you don't really know how they'll translate into the American game for sure.
But at the same time, you're Atlanta United, so
Right.
you have to, in a sense, do what you've always done and go to South America and maybe take a little bit of a risk on a player,
Right.
and that's going to yield the upside.
Or a coach,
Or a coach in this case. And yield that upside that you're looking for,
Right.
because you're not going to go out and grab a top manager from somewhere. You're not on that. You're not that big of a fish yet. But so they're all to say they're all going to have their detractors and their issues. Right. But for me, I trust the front office fully. I think that whatever decision they make, I'm going to back them 100%, because they're going to make that choice for a reason.
Yeah, and I think the interesting name here is the Gabriel Milito, the one that hasn't really been rumored with us yet. He's 38. He has managed at Independiente, which is the club that Ezequiel Barco came from. He actually took him from the academy side and put him into the team, and that did them a really big world of good, because, well, they won the Copa Libertadores.
Well, no, Sudamericana.
Sudamericana,
They
sorry.
get confused.
It's true.
So many
sorry.
South American cups.
Sorry. And then Ezequiel Barco was sold for $15 million. I mean, or whereabouts. I mean, that's a pretty penny that they made on him. And granted, he wasn't the coach anymore then, but I mean, still, he kind of blooded him into the team. I think if he came back and was able to work with Ezequiel Barco again, get the best out of a Barco.
You definitely would look for that if you're looking for a hire, especially when you spend that amount of money on a player.
Right.
You'd like to get a tune out of them if you can, and what better than the manager that trusted them to play first team football in the first place?
Exactly. But another bit into this is that Peter Coates of Golazo Argentino, a very respected outlet in Argentina, he mentioned any of these candidates, actually he is perplexed that we're not looking at a Gabriel Heinze, who, could be even the best candidate of them all, so he says.
Yeah, he's currently the manager of Les Sarsfield, so he's getting some experience. They sit 6th, I believe, in the Argentina Primera Division, which is a nightmare, so I don't really know what that even means at this point in time. He was a successful player, playing for clubs like of Manchester United and Real Madrid, so he's been around the block. He's learned from some of the best at those clubs, and now he's decided to take his turn in management. So again, he fits the kind of profile you're looking for, I think, post Tata Martino, where you have a system, you have the players, you know the way you want to play, and now you need a manager to come in, guide them, set the team up, and make those decisions. And for Atlanta United, I think, again, they would have done their homework on every candidate. So who knows? With Darren Eales, he plays things pretty close to the vest quite a lot of the time. So some of the candidates you've seen mentioned might not be the ones we actually are talking to. So
Right.
We'll find out when we find out.
And guys, let's get into the mailbag, and you guys send in your questions through IG story. Please continue to do so, and we may choose your question in the future. First question comes from Amanda Dewitt. I still don't know how to pronounce this, but we will work on it still again. But he asks, many people have argued that our playoff run has been easier than all of the other teams. What are your thoughts?
Who are these people?
Yeah.
Who are these people you've been speaking with? I really need to know this. We've only beaten a team that I believe had more points than almost every team in the West in NYCFC.
Yeah.
And then we only went around and then beat the best ever regular season team in MLS history by 3-1, and basically had the second leg be a dead rubber. So if by easy you mean we throttled the teams that we played and they were really good teams, then sure. But in terms of the actual teams we played, I would say we probably had the toughest road, because we had to play the two best teams outside of Atlanta United in the league this year. Yeah. Now, mind you, Portland had to come from the one-off elimination game.
The 5th position, I guess, and then they had to beat 2, they had to beat 3, and then 1. So, okay, sure. But, I think they had to come from a lower position, and sure, everything's going to be harder if you're doing
play an
that.
extra game and you're playing your first, your second game on the road.
Right. But let's look at the the records of these teams that we've beaten, and in terms of how we've beaten them as well. I mean, it's been pretty kind of comprehensive. So
yeah, I mean, it's been 2 solid victories for Atlanta United against 2 really good teams.
Yeah.
When you look at it at the beginning, would you say Atlanta had an easy road? No, they just played really well and advanced to MLS Cup. So I mean, obviously Portland had a tough road, but I'd say for us, it's not exactly easy by any means.
Right, exactly. But then all the other teams, that main point, then all the other teams.
I'd really like to talk to this person you were speaking with. They're crazy.
Yeah, but next question comes from Carson ATL Hawks 26.
That's easy to pronounce. Thank you for making it simple.
With the hatred that New York Red Bulls fans are giving us, is it our new rivalry?
Also, why a Hawks fan? They're so bad. I jest. I don't know. Have we been getting a lot of hate from them? I mean, I guess like their fans were kind of acting like dickheads at the match, which is why they were our waste man of the week in the last 5 straight weekly. But yeah. I mean, for me,
and on Twitter and stuff like that. And
yeah, it's gonna happen
media,
when you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be salty if I was them as well. I mean, you had the best regular season ever, and you go up against a team that you've beaten every time, minus 1 draw, and you feel confident, and then you turn out performances like that, and then
they measured it,
and then you lose your best player to Germany right after that. Basically, they didn't even wait for the body to get cold until they shipped their best young player off to Germany. So I mean, I guess they could be salty. I'd understand that. In terms of rivalry, yeah, absolutely, they're a rival. I mean, they're the best of they're the second best team outside of Atlanta United in the East. I mean, they're going to be there every year. They're really, really good, and they've beaten us 3 out of 4 times. We just before this tie,
or
so,
even
they even beat us again in the second leg. Exactly. So we've only beaten them once out of what, 5 tries?
6, yeah. So
something like
4 out of 6. Exactly.
They're a really good team,
and we look forward to more battles against them.
Absolutely, and you need other really good teams. So for me, I'd say them and DC United and Toronto. Those are the teams I despise the most in the East, for sure.
Agreed. And I think likewise they feel that same way towards us. So yeah. Next question comes from Hagris 20. Is the CCL knockout one-off rounds or home and home? It is home and home. Yeah, pretty much. It's a for I believe
the
up until the final.
I thought the final's home and home as well.
Is it home and home?
I think the final's home and home as well. Yeah. I think it's one of those. It's like
they change it so much.
The Copa Libertadores. Honestly, it's hard to keep up. But don't worry. When it gets time for Concacaf Champions League, we might even do a whole video on the damn thing to help everyone get accustomed to it, learn how it works, who's won, done what. Because for a lot of us, it's a brand new competition that we'll be learning about with the rest of the team.
Yeah. Next question comes from Camilo London 30. Top 3 next possible captain's choices. Who should go first?
LGP, Gressel, and then I think Guzan. I'm not really a fan of making keepers captains, but you've seen it work. I mean, you see it with Neuer sometimes, and then you saw it with Casillas, obviously, with Spain and Real Madrid for a while, and he's a pretty commanding presence, Guzan. Yeah. So the only issue is that who talks to the referee. Then I think you have a clear vice captain in either Gressel or LGP. But for me, I think it's one of those 3. They're just the ones that spring to mind the most.
Yeah, I think LGP absolutely agree with, and this is, mind you, when Parkey and Lorenowitz, they move on.
Right, because if Parkey and Lorenowitz stay to be Lorenowitz or vice versa. I mean, so yeah.
Yeah, Gressel for sure, I think, is if he stays as well, I think that's somebody that is showing a lot of leadership at a young age, and is someone that has played every single game pretty much, and so absolutely, that's another great one. I would even put in, I mean, Guzan I see, but it's one of those vice captains. I think a Darlington Nagbe, I think, is he'd
be a great captain. I would love to see him wear the armband.
Yeah.
And at some point in time before he leaves Atlanta United, I want Joseph Martinez to wear the armband.
I agree
at least once, just to see it, because I love that guy.
Yeah, and especially if he's got to talk to a ref, like what he's gonna do. Oh man, it'd be funny. It'd be funny.
It makes me just happy just thinking about it.
The scenes that would happen. But next question comes from JDR. Are we having a parade in case of a win? I think with the way that the Atlanta City Council has already embraced this team, and with just the fervent fan base, and you see Atlanta United flags everywhere, you see people wearing the gear and kits like pretty much at work, not even on just Five Track Friday, but like on a Wednesday.
Not to mention the fact that this would be the first championship for the city of Atlanta since the 95 Braves, I believe. Yeah. So if you're doing everything that Atlanta United is doing, I imagine they're going to have a parade.
Right, especially selling out the stadiums.
Yeah, come on. Obviously, we won't know, but for me personally, I don't want to talk about it right now. Yeah, exactly. We'll find out after we win.
Indeed.
And that has to come first.
Let's knock on wood.
So guys, let's get into the match preview, and you know we had to do it big. We had to bring in Devon and Marc from the fan cams, and guys, it's the biggest match in Atlanta United history. And Saturday at 8 o'clock or whereabouts, it's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and it's that MLS Cup final. We are all very, very stoked, I think, speaking for everybody, but yeah.
God, this week cannot go by any slower, I swear.
Honestly.
It's
Tuesday.
Look at the clock, and it's just like, go faster.
Exactly. There's still a lot of build-up to happen, but we're going to break down what's going to happen, what we need to do to win this match. But before we do that, let's get into what Portland did to get to this final. I mean, essentially, they were the 5th seed. They beat the 2nd seed in FC Dallas. Then they beat their rivals in Seattle Sounders in what was an incredible Eastern Conference final, or semifinal rather. And then they beat the favorites in the West, Sporting KC. And now they're in the final, and this is kind of insane. They're the smash and grab team that kind of almost a Cinderella.
Yeah, I would say so. I think for them, the most interesting thing about Portland is that they've done this before. They won an MLS Cup not even 4 years ago with the Darlington Nagby that we now have running our midfield, and they won it by beating a very good Columbus Crew team on the road. So for a lot of them, including Diego Valeri, this is not an unfamiliar situation for them, and they're going to be very comfortable in a sense going into a game where they've played on this field once already this year. They played in front of a big crowd. They know it's going to be rowdy, and they're going to do the same thing they did before. And I think for Atlanta United, it's going to be how do you get past that defense, and how do you deal with whatever they throw at you, because they're a team that in just a brief moment can spark some magic, as we saw against Sporting KC.
You just nailed the point. Is Blanco can snap in a second, and the next thing you know is it's in the back of the net.
I mean, 30 yards. He just cuts in, 2 touches, boom.
And that ball looked like it was a drone strike. I mean, it was kind of one of those things, like, it didn't even look natural. But, like we said with Timbers, they've got Chara, they've got, they've got Diego Valeri. They've also got a really good defense.
They've got Liam Ridgewell. He's been around the block with them for a long time.
So you're talking about a team that's together, that's been around, and without any major signings. I mean, they're pretty much... There's a continuity there, and that's why I think you saw a team that got hot and made it through a jumbled West. We all know that the East has pretty much been a 2, maybe 3-team race if you want to include NYCFC with Red Bulls and Atlanta. But the West was pretty jumbled. Nobody knew who the one was going to be right up until the final weekend. So they came through the gauntlet, and they're going to be tough. But we have a tremendous opportunity with the home field advantage.
And I mean, I think Portland's a little bit deceptive as a 5th seed. I mean, they were right in that mix, like you were saying, for the 1 seed. They were unbeaten from April to August. So they had a
say that again. That's a crazy stat.
Unbeaten from April to August, 4 months, and that's including the visit to Mercedes-Benz where they got the 1-1 draw.
Yeah. And they still got high going into the playoffs. That's just insane.
I mean, we got to think, they finished 5th in the West on 54 points.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a very good season. They scored over 50 goals. They let a bit too many in on the back end, I guess you could say, because they only ended up with a +8 goal difference, conceding 48. But, I mean, they're a very good team. Like you said, with MLS Cup and how playoffs work, you just have to get hot. And because these are the only matches you have to play, and then you have that international break in the middle of it, which, that stinks. But it's not like Champions League where you have league matches or other cup matches midweek. This is all they have to worry about. And if you can get hot and you find that 11 that keeps driving you through and you find a formula, then you stick with that. And for them, they've gotten hot at the right time, similar to Atlanta United, because let's be honest, we didn't end the regular season on a high note, but we found ourselves. And I think you have the 2 best playing teams in the MLS Cup final right now, which is going to be very, very dangerous because they're a very good team. As we said, it's a jumbled West. They had to deal with a lot of stuff, and they got out of it.
And isn't Diego Valeri also the defending MLS MVP candidate?
He is.
And we have 2
potential... he was the MVP last year.
We have 2 potential MVP candidates, with Almiron and Martinez on
big
our
announcement tomorrow.
Yeah,
hopefully
the star power, just on the front line attack for this match is what I hope is the feature, because so often we've seen Atlanta United play bunkering teams, and do the side-to-side slow pass and then take it wide and cross it into nobody. We can't do that against Portland. They're huge.
Right.
They're huge in the middle. We have to do what worked against Red Bulls, and we just need to attack straight up the middle and press, and I think that's where we're going to find our success.
Yeah, and that continuity that you were talking about, I mean, the only difference, the major difference from last year is that the coach left. Caleb Porter, their previous coach, left before the start of the year, and it's last year, and it's kind of the reason why we have Darlington Nagbe, because he thought that, I need a change of scenery now that my coach from, even in college, and then now for most of the time I've been in MLS, has changed. And now Giovanni Savarese, his first year in MLS, he's taken them to an MLS Cup final. Like, guys, this team is not to be taken lightly at all.
Not at all.
Savarese, I think, ended the season on a very interesting note. On decision day, the final day, Portland had a playoff berth clinched, and but they didn't have a seeding clinch, and he rested his starters against Vancouver, and they lost. And I thought that showed a lot of confidence in his team and his team's ability to go on the road and get results, and they did that in the knockout run against Dallas. So, for a first-year coach, it's a big decision, and it paid off, obviously.
Which isn't an easy ask anyway. Look at what happened to Atlanta United. Dallas are one of those few teams that you know exactly how they're going to play home and away. They sit deep and they counter. And it's frustrating as hell, but clearly it works for them and it gets them results. And for a team like Portland, who aren't necessarily an explosive attacking team, to have to take that to Dallas and to get a result down there tells you how good of a team they are. So, I think that as much can be said about, the cauldron that will be the Benz on Saturday, I don't think you could find a team that's more prepared to step into that atmosphere and handle it than Portland Timbers.
The one argument I would have with you, Tanner, is had we gotten SKC, I thought that Kansas City might have had that defensive setup with Melia and Ike Opara. But Portland is definitely right up there. So my biggest fear with Portland is the fact that they can bunker and still beat you.
Right.
They don't have to attack you to beat you. They can pinpoint attack your mistakes. And we all know that Atlanta United sometimes gets a little free-flowing, and we tend to overstep. We might play too wide, or we might play too narrow and leave our sides wide open. That's where Portland is deadly, and we all know that this is not going to be a 0-0 going to PKs. There's goals in this game.
Oh, for sure.
I say my biggest fear, but my fear is that we have whereas against Red Bulls we scored early. The second time we didn't. We could have put that match away. We have to take our chances in this match.
Yeah, and in terms of what you were just saying, there's been 2.5 goals in Portland's last 7 away matches. So that means, there's definitely going to be goals in this match, and I think that leads to in terms of the previous matchups with us between them, we were 1-1 both last year and this year at their grounds, and then at Mercedes-Benz, and it's there's going to be goals. It's pretty tight between us, and I think there has to be a breakthrough, obviously, and so that third goal is going to be proving to be vital to what's gonna what the outcome of this match is going to be.
I think touching on that third goal, what's really interesting though is that I think we can all agree that when Atlanta United score first, especially at home, they almost always win because it makes the other team play. I think the one thing that you will absolutely see from Portland, they don't care if they go 1-0 down,
right,
because they've done it before. They did it to Sporting KC, and they'll continue to play the same way they've played all game. They won't open up because, like Devon said, they can score while defending. They can break. So even if Atlanta do get that first goal, which obviously is ideal for Atlanta to get the first goal and open that game up, Portland will stay patient. So it won't be something that, because it's a final, to expect them to be like, well, we have to get a goal now. They'll keep playing the same way they always play, and Atlanta will have to defend.
And the major difference between Savarese and Porter is, I felt that with Porter and Portland, they kind of had almost an Arsene Wenger Arsenal complex, to where they wanted to play the beautiful ball. Everything had to be tiki-taka touch, make 37 passes before you take a shot. This year, it's dink and dunk, and Valeri's over the top, and boop, or Blanco gets a throw in, turns around, takes a 30-yard shot.
Yeah.
So they don't care how they score. You just made a great point. It doesn't have to be the beautiful game. They just want the result.
Right, and it was evident in that Sporting KC match, especially those points that you were talking about. It's that star power that they have. Diego Valeri, he scored 14 goals. He had 12 assists. Blanco had 13 goals and 8 assists. I mean, something where, you know, those two guys, they can, on a dime, out of nothing chance, they can, you know, absolutely score on you, and it's just something that we really have to be very wary of. Especially,
and they replaced Darlington Nagbe with Chara like it was nothing. I mean, we have to be 100% honest there. Darlington Nagbe has been a silent MVP candidate for our team. I mean, he doesn't put the goals in, but when he's healthy, he bosses a midfield, and they have a player who literally stepped into the role. And they haven't missed. They're back in the MLS Cup final. So you know, all plaudits and all applause to Portland. They have exceeded expectations. They got a new coach. They had some continuity, but they've had to have a next man up mentality. So you cannot say enough about them and their road of getting here, and it's going to be a great matchup.
Right. Yeah. And so let's get into what the injury report looks like for both teams. For us, I mean, Romario Williams is still out. He's pretty much out for the season. Ambrose is still a little iffy, but I think we have enough left back depth that we'll be okay. And of course, the big one, Michael Parkhurst, his sprained ankle that he suffered in the last match. He seemingly says that he's ready to go for the final, and that
they'd have to cut his leg off, man.
Exactly.
I believe
he's playing.
Yeah, I saw Doug Roberson in the AJC today said that Parkhurst would be available, and that's huge. I mean, you know, he may not be the most athletic, he may not be the fastest, but he's the captain, and he's the organizer. He's that middle linebacker that just tells everybody where to be.
And he's a big miss if we don't have him in the lineup. Absolutely. I mean, Miles Robinson is great in a pinch, but in terms of this is the MLS Cup final.
Right.
I mean, if we don't have our captain.
Yeah. And it's also big for him personally. This is going to be his 5th MLS Cup. Still hasn't won it yet, you know what I mean? So he wants to play.
Exactly. And he wants to play so that when he's on that podium, if we win, it actually means something because he actually put in that shift. He actually, is a,
He doesn't want to be a John Terry type person.
And how cool would it be for him and Lorenowitz to to hoist that cup with a bunch of kids? I mean, I just think that,
pretty much. And Guzan.
And Guzan. The blend of the team is veterans and youth, and I think that this is, this is, like we've said all along, this is the culmination of what's ultimately a 3-year project. A year without a team, the inauguration year, and now in year 2 we're playing for a championship. So this team, as we all know, is going to change next season. So this is their opportunity to leave a legacy and do it with a second, larger, more beautiful piece of silverware.
Yeah, hopefully. And so getting into the Timbers injury report, looks like they have a defender, Roy Miller, out. Goalkeeper Jake Gleason has been out for a while already. And questionable for this match, David Guzman and Samuel Armenteros.
Funny enough, Armenteros actually is... he might not be the biggest name, but that dude can score a banger. He scored a screamer against LAFC earlier this season, and for someone who could play or could come off the bench, he's a player that if he's fit for them, he could make a difference because you have those two main guys, but early in the season especially, Armenteros did a lot to help that attack, and I think that he's one of those guys that if they are chasing a goal,
good plan
if he's
B for
fit,
them,
he's a good plan B to bring off the bench and give you a little bit more up top as an attacker.
Maybe like their Tito.
Yeah. Let's also talk about our weak point too. Is one of their strong points. They are very big. So set pieces and corners with their center backs and the size that they possess over us. We can't give up silly fouls.
No.
We can't have jersey tugs right outside the box. We can't give up those. 10 yards closer than a corners, basically, because that just puts us under such duress with a team that's bigger than us in all facets.
In the matchup earlier this season, we gave up a bunch of set pieces in the first half and a goal on the set piece. So
our Achilles heel, especially, I mean, as much as we want to practice it, it just no matter what it is, we're probably going to give up a set piece goal. And so, especially
before halftime,
yeah.
Oh my God.
So we have to limit, especially when that happens, and where we give up the free kicks, and just really make sure that we don't give up anything that's a good chance for them.
Play like you did leg 1 against Red Bulls, and everything will be just fine.
Right, very true.
Just like that. Put in the defensive shift that you did in the second leg against Red Bulls,
right?
And everything will be just fine.
Right, especially if they're going to sit off of us, which maybe. But I think they're going to be a lot more of a low block and a lot more compact than what Red Bulls were doing. Yeah. But and in terms of the refs, really quick, Alan Kelly is going to be reffing this match, and he apparently has the best grades of any of the referees in MLS this year, and so at least there is that, I guess.
Sorry, Mark Geiger fans, you won't get your wish.
Right.
The American Mike Dean will not write again.
Right. We survived Jair Marufo. Baldomero Toledo this time around.
Right. Toledo.
Could be a lot
honestly,
worse.
I think he's the one I despise the most. Just because.
More than Geiger,
I take that back. Toledo is the Mike Dean of MLS. He has like the balding look. He definitely likes to make it more about himself, and he'll ignore everyone else just to get his way.
Yeah.
But we've won with Kelly. Wasn't Kelly also the ref that tried to red card Chris McCann? That got pulled back?
That got rescinded at the
beginning. I believe that Kelly was at LAFC with Benny Feilhaber. So he's quick to pull a card, but he's also quick to admit a mistake with VAR. Chris Penso is the VAR, and there is a second. There's an assistant.
There is, Thomas Supple. Yeah,
need all the help they can get.
Yeah, they'll be pulling out all the stops for this one because this is an instance, especially with Champions League coming out saying that they're going to start using VAR. Referee discrepancies are being reviewed and they're being watched, especially on the highest level. You know, everybody knows my feelings about pro referees. We're watching, especially in this one.
Absolutely. And, is it going to be a playoff foul? Like, what is going to be called? That's really going to be the question. I hope it's consistent to what it's been in the playoffs so far. So
I hope it's not, because Kevin Stott let everything go, and Mark Geiger didn't let a damn thing go.
It wasn't consistent
what's
between
a foul?
those two. But yeah.
I mean, I think what'll be interesting, though, is like Devin said, he is quick to pull a card out, but this is also a final. So it would have been nice. It's okay to have a quick card maybe when you're playing a two-legged tie because you have another 90 minutes and you need to behave yourself or you're going to get suspended.
Right.
And this, you don't want to be pulling out cards too soon because if you have to send someone off, that completely changes things. Right. It's a one-off. The microscope, like you said, is going to be on you. And if you're quick with your cards, you could have 2 quick yellows and you're gone.
And that's my big fear with Atlanta United is we are going to be hyped. We are going to be on 11. It's going to be Spinal Tap cranked to 13 if the amps would go that high. So players like LGP, players like Gressel, players like Rometty, they're going to have to
be disciplined.
They're going to have to be disciplined and keep it cool because, like I said, I really do see Alan Kelly trying to put a stamp on the game. Like, look, I'm going to take control of this. I don't see the free-flowing play. I think he's going to – because otherwise you'll have Portland hitting our players and us returning the favor.
But at the same time, that also plays into Portland's hands because it keeps the game chopped up. So it goes just the same for them. If they're defending deep, they're in a low block – you have players like Almiron, like Martinez, like Abarco and Ivijabo when they come on, who are tricky guys who will make you make a foul. Nagby as well. I mean, Nagby's a guy you have to foul to get him off the ball. So they're in the
first
same
15
place.
minutes are going to we'll know. We'll know because if in the first 3 minutes he shows a yellow card, it's going to be a tight ticky-tack game.
Absolutely.
If in the first 15 minutes we haven't seen a card and there's players
which in my
falling
opinion,
and flopping,
I think it's ideal that you not have a card in the first 15 minutes. Right. You can call fouls, but unless it's someone a la Miggy getting taken out on the sideline against NYCFC, unless you have something cynical like that, you have to let it go.
Which even that was lenient at a yellow.
Yeah.
I mean, that could have been a dog.
Well, it took him a minute to get anything out, so it's like,
it could have been a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity.
I mean, he was a little further away.
He was far, but Miggy's fast. How far can Miggy cover half?
True. I mean, I mostly agree that I want the ref to let the game go, but I do want to see Miggy protected in particular. He gets hacked. Like, we've seen it all season. We've seen it in the postseason, so... he's
going to have to get used to it if he moves to the Premier League.
Oh, sure. Yeah, he won't be getting in any of those calls.
He hasn't been targeted and circled already. It's like, this guy flops.
Hit him.
But, guys, that gets us into our predicted formation. And I think I speak for everybody probably, unless anybody wants to chime in, that it's probably going to be that 4-3-3 that's shown up on the Atlanta United lineup, but it's that 5-3-2 that we know they actually play.
I just say run the 10-1.
Yeah, the 10-1 essentially.
10-1.
But that we'll get into who's in there just if you want it. But basically Guzan between the six, of course, and then you have Larry, you have Parkey, you have LGP, and then you have Escobar wingback, Garza wingback, and then that 3-man midfield of Nagby, Rometty, and Gressel, and then 2 up top, Miggy and Joseph. With probably the expected subs again, probably with Barco and Tito, unless something else happens. But speak up if you feel any differently.
No, absolutely not.
Not unless they run the 10-1.
Sure.
I think what's really interesting is the way that Atlanta United has... Obviously, it's nice to find your best way of playing at the end of the season and hit your best form at the end of the season. That's all you can ever ask from a team. But I think what's interesting is how Atlanta United have gone about finding their best team. Because if you would have asked me at the beginning of the season how I would see the best team lining up, and especially for the first half of the year, you heard me banging about how I wanted a 4-3-3.
Yep.
But somehow this 3-5-2 that they've come up with, especially with this 3-man midfield of Gressel, Rometty, and Nagby, has so much athleticism and dynamism. They cover the entire middle of the park. And as you've seen in the first 2 rounds, it restricts teams from being able to play through the middle and not get to that back four, which then makes them have to try to attack you wide. And I think what's interesting, and it'll go into how we played against Red Bull, you didn't see Garza attacking the byline. You didn't see him going down, especially like you used to see him at the beginning of the season when the fullbacks always were overlapping. We were always going for it and leaving that space in the back. He has been holding his spot and not going all the way back to help cover that back four, in a sense, because he can kind of shift it and you can defend that way. Escobar still takes that space, but even he's been a bit more restrained in how he attacks that wing.
He's also been more offensive.
He's been incredible.
Escobar's been more clinical.
He's been the best player in the playoffs. Him and Rometty as far as
he was
I'm
afforded
concerned.
that space, though, obviously, with Kamar Lawrence being out, and I mean, that's really when he started to shine, of course. But
having Royer on his side was not an easy assignment,
No.
you know, and Kaku, you know, running through the midfield for them. He was not afforded an easy opportunity, and he made it look easy.
True.
So I feel like his strength is in attack now. I mean, in defense. Also, too, one thing I've noticed about our formations is we're always defending in threes.
Yes.
We travel in triangles,
Which is good to hunt in packs. That's what you want from a team.
Exactly. So there's never really a situation where we should be alone. And it's not like you have a right center back and a left center back, because they're always kind of fluidly moving around in packs. And I noticed that when the other team has the ball, if we're not set back and bunkered down, we are literally on top of them, like Red Bulls did to us in the first early parts of the matches. That's the big change that I've seen in the playoffs, is we play with an urgency and we play with an aggression that's that I didn't really see all season.
And I think that comes from that midfield three, because they can cover the space now. So Rometty, you've seen him positionally. When we have the ball, he's a genius. He can find the player, especially like a Kaku or whoever's that creator for them. He'll find, in this case, a Valeri or a Blanco, and he'll mark that person to where they're not going to get a free run, or he can drop into the back if one of the center backs pushes forward. And then you have Gressel, who covers space like a madman because he can play literally anywhere on the park. And then you know what you get from Nagby, because he can control a game. You get that athleticism that can cover, like I said, all of that ground and help defend in those threes, because you know one of those midfield three can always come back and help someone somewhere. And they've been working so hard, which I think is why Atlanta hasn't really given anything up on the counter, which I think is going to be Portland's biggest problem, is that they're going to try to create through the middle because they don't do a lot out wide.
That's all the positioning of Parker.
Which is where Atlanta United are really going to find their success, I think, is out wide. And then they're going to be in a situation which is, how do we attack when we do get the ball? Because Atlanta are going to defend. They're going to defend well. They're going to have at least 3 back to possibly 4 all the time. You know that one of those 2 guys is going to be getting closed down by Rometty, and they're not going to have a chance. So I think that's why it's so key to see where the fullbacks for Atlanta United play, because that'll tell you how much space we're willing to give them.
And on that too, do you put a man specifically on Valeri? Do you put LGP on Valeri and say, this is your guy?
I think Blanco is the guy you mark first and foremost.
With
and
Rometty?
Yeah, with Rometty, exactly. And then like
a
go
spy almost.
Yeah, and then like Chara, I would see Nagby matching up with him. Like I think they're pretty similar.
I think occupying him, would be ideal.
Because Chara's key to their counterattack. Like he makes those deep runs from midfield. So I think like that's
like an N'Golo Kante. Almost.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so Valeri, I think that would be more like you pass, or you watch him obviously, but like you pass him off, like because he's not stationary. You know?
Right.
The thing with him though is I want LGP on him because of the size and speed.
Yeah.
I just see him being able to bully Parkhurst a little bit, if not because, like we said, Parkhurst
make a smart run.
Parkhurst is all about positioning. And he's tactical awareness. LGP is a physical specimen that can stand up with Diego Valeri. So that was my question to you. I would rather almost, if we were to man mark just that guy, would you want to mark him with our best defender?
I'd rather go with Rometty because you have that guy that can cover the space in the middle, and it doesn't pull a guy away that could potentially expose you for pace. Because in your back line, the only person with pace with that back three is going to be LGP. So for some reason, you do get a run off the shoulder. The only person able to close that down, if it's on a counter, would be LGP. And if you have him running around with Valeri, if Valeri makes a smart move to step up and you have a Blanco running behind, now you're in a tough situation, especially if your fullbacks are pushed up.
And he doesn't stand like a typical striker. He roves. And that's something that we need to maybe tell some of the fans. Like a striker, a lot of times you'll see somebody like Joseph. He'll get involved in the play, and then the play moves on, and he walks back. Valeri's not that kind of striker. Valeri's kind of a fox in the box, but also
he's a very interesting forward. Because he has the qualities of he's not really a false nine because he scores goals, but he does drop deep, find space, and let others run beyond him. He can get the ball to them because he knows he's going to attract so much attention because he's an all-around complete player. To be perfectly honest, if Miggy leaves and you said you can pick one player from MLS and only one player to come to your team to replace him, I'd pick Diego Valeri.
So I'd take Piatti.
Yeah, either of those two Argentinians are very highly coveted for sure.
Coming back to Atlanta real quick though, in terms of how we play. I mean, even though they've been solid in the playoffs, I think they haven't given up too much offensively either.
Right.
We've seen especially in the home games, and I think that's just comes down to the versatility of that midfield five and Miggy, of course. Being able to contribute both ways. Like Escobar, we've seen get forward. Garza almost scored. Gressel, we see make those forward runs. We know what Nagby does. Remedi's comfortable on the ball. So, I mean, I think the key aspect to Atlanta's game, first and foremost, is technical ability, but right after that is work rate. And, like, those 6 guys in particular are going to have to work their butts off.
And I think you made a really good point. There's something that I think we might forget because he scores goals and gets assists, but Miguel Almiron's work rate is incredible.
It is.
I mean, he was tracking back and tackling in the second leg of the Red Bull game. I mean, all the way to the corner flag.
That's what crowds that midfield.
And
you don't ask that of a number 10. And
he
he's
is
so
the
fast.
fastest player on the pitch against any
He'll run
team.
back,
With the ball
make the tackle, and then sprint the other way after the ball's been won to help start a counterattack.
He's also more physical than he gets credit for.
That's true, especially when he's defending. But I mean, you get another defender constantly from that, and I think that's why you're seeing him sub now. And I think what's interesting is how it's worked out to where you're bringing Tito and Barco off the bench. I mean, what else could they'd start in any other MLS side, and they're coming off the bench, but it gives you the ability to let Miggy run himself into the ground because by the time he's done running circles around those defenders and they have their hands on their knees catching a breath, you have Tito coming on who's just as fast and even more direct at times, and they're just like, great, now.
Yeah, the human spark plug.
And then you have Barco coming on who's, yay high and can keep the ball when he doesn't dribble into 5 people, but he can, especially when you're tired, he's a player you can't afford to make a mistake against because he'll go past you.
Yeah, no, very true. And and the record for goals for and goals against for Atlanta in this postseason has been 7 goals and 1 goal against. And so, I mean, we have been very tidy and also very efficient. And so it's it bodes well for this match. And also, I mean, another quick stat is that our last 8 home matches we've scored 2 goals at least. And so, I mean, I think that gets us right into our score prediction.
I think the other stat you can't forget, though, is the fact that Atlanta United hasn't lost 2 matches in a row this season. And they lost that second leg to Red Bull. And they've responded every single time after they've lost. Mind you, it's a bit of a different circumstance.
I've never been so joyous after a loss.
Mind you, it was a game where you show up and you're just like, we don't have to win, so that's fine with, like, we know we don't have to win. So
explaining to all your friends aggregate.
Exactly. A lot of people.
What's this odds rate?
Yeah, I mean, I saw some really funny tweets from people who were listening to what they were calling hipster soccer fans in bars, explaining how the team got. So we lost, but anyway, I think what's
that
interesting
Felipe
is
Cardenas tweet.
It was fantastic.
Very funny.
Is that Atlanta have not lost 2 games in a row all season. You're going into a final at home. I mean, the stats point to it, but again, like you said, over and over and over again, Portland is a very, very good team, and I think this is going to be a final that is contested between the 2 best supported teams in Major League Soccer. And I think right now, for optics, it's a really, really good Cup final for MLS to have, which means it's even more important for Atlanta United to win.
Yeah, and speaking about the we'll get to the score prediction real quick, but speaking about those supporters, they're going to bring that victory log to the Bends, and they're making it go cross country and everything.
Shout out to Timbers Army.
It's fantastic.
You guys do great work, and I've been to Providence Park. It's an amazing place. You guys set a standard, and I hope that you like what you see from us.
And they play on a similar turf that we do. Yeah. Hopefully we go there next season. Yeah, for sure. But if they're gonna bring that victory log, hopefully they don't actually get to have any fun with it, and they can just, again, like I said last week,
we got some live work condos that need wood.
Exactly.
So we're more than happy to keep.
Or we can keep warm in that 30-degree temperature that we're gonna have, and just put it right on their smokestacks.
We beat them, and then we just take the log and blow a trophy case out of it.
Haha. But
shout out Timbers Army.
Indeed. But so let's get into that score prediction. I'm gonna go with Devon first. What do you expect to happen?
Hard fought. I think we're gonna jump out on them quick. I'm gonna go Atlanta United 2. I think Portland's gonna score late. So it's gonna be squeaky bum time, but it's gonna be 2-1. Atlanta United's gonna hoist the cup in front of everybody at the Bends.
Okay, Mark.
My final score prediction is 3-1. I think it's key that Atlanta gets that second goal before Portland scores. And yeah, I agree that I do think we'll give up a goal at some point, but I think we'll seal it as well. So I'm going to go 3-1.
Okay, Tanner.
I think they're too good not to score, being Portland. I think they will get a goal. But for me, I think so much about this just points to Atlanta. They're the best team in the league when they play at their best, and I don't think anyone can really be on the same field with them at the same time when they're playing at their best. I think they found their form. There's going to be so much emotion going into this game from the fans, from the players, for Tata, which is like, Devin said earlier, you have to control that.
Yep.
But for me, I think that they're just the better team, and I think that 2-1, we're going to get the job done, but I think, like Devin, it's going to be testy, it's going to be feisty, it's going to be squeaky bum time, and I think at the end of the day it has to be, because it's an Atlanta sports team and we have to work for it. Right. So I think that's the perfect way especially for most of these people, to kill that damn thing.
But if they want to put that 7-0 like we did to,
at the same time, if we wanted to hang a 7 on them,
oh my God,
I would take that in order.
We would just be relaxed.
I'd be at Molly B's with a spiked Arnold Palmer slushy in my hand.
Yeah,
it'd be amazing.
So it was not an I don't think
AJ?
No, hold on. We wouldn't expect anybody to predict us to lose anybody in this room, of course, and but
even I couldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I can't do it.
As negative as this guy can be sometimes, but I think I'm gonna be the only one that predicts. No, I'm predicting us to win 2-1. I agree that we need to get that first goal, and I think with 2-1 we break that curse that Atlanta has. And I think we would get that parade that we also covet in Atlanta. And boy, would it be nice!
I got it.
Yeah.
I was just practicing.
We're gonna knock on all the wood possible on that Timbers victory log, and really hope that this happens. But guys, let us know what you think is gonna happen in the comments below. And
let us know if you have any fingernails left, because it's only Tuesday.
I don't have any already. It's Tuesday. I'm just driving down the freeway and I'm just like,
indeed. But
real quick, shout out to everybody who's talking up the team. Everybody at 92.9 The Game. Everybody, Longshore, Mike Conti.
All the other podcasts.
All the other podcasts. Everybody, all the fans, everybody that's involved in this.
All the supporters groups.
Seriously, this has been amazing, and it's something that we can truly say is authentic to Atlanta. Like we always talk about Outcast being authentic to Atlanta. We're like, Atlanta United, this is something that we own. This is something that we as a fan base and we as a culture have cultivated, and it's a beautiful thing. And we're probably 5 years ahead of schedule, but we've done some amazing things, and Saturday is an opportunity to just really lay down a marker and let's show the world what we can do. We're doing it. People are already talking about this club all over. Shout out to all my UK friends that are watching this, now and have an interest in the MLS because of Atlanta United. So really show out this week and show the Portland people a good time. That they're in our city. Make sure that you're not a dick.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Make sure me, they're a team. They're almost a sister club without being the same when it comes to their fan base. How maybe they play a different style of soccer, but when you look at Providence Park,
they set an amazing example.
It's a place where, personally for me, I want to go watch a football match. Before
Tifos are amazing.
Before Atlanta United was ever even a thing, and I wasn't living in Atlanta, and it was like, well, if you had to pick an MLS club, who would it be? Portland Timbers. I have a Portland Timbers scarf at home. It sits right next to my Atlanta United scarf. I respect that club immensely. Mind you, I want us to beat the tail off of them this weekend. But they're a great club that, for me, that's the culture you want to see at a club in America. That's what we want to see at every single one.
I saw them beat LA Galaxy at Providence Park in 2014, and it was in the pouring rain, but there was not an empty seat in the house, and it was loud. And they had this club like right behind one of the goals, to where like you could literally just see people on like exercise bikes watching the match, but the place just filled up afterwards. And, so it was like the culture in Portland is exactly what we replicated in Atlanta, and then did 3 times over.
You see that especially with the traveling support. In June they had a huge contingent, and then they're going to have over 1,000 at this match, which I'm really looking forward to.
I wish they could have more.
I wish
they could have 2,000-3,000.
You've got supporters here in Atlanta.
But and there's also that There's also that aspect of they didn't have the best record, in terms of the remaining people in the final as well. So, arguably they should have had a better record for them to be playing at home. So there is that as well. But I understand.
Are we talking about the ticket allocation?
Yeah, the ticket allocation thing. Yeah,
because that's a whole
other thing.
For those of you making the trip, come down. We're gonna have a good time at the Gulch on
Exactly.
Saturday. Be there early. It's gonna be cold. It's gonna be rainy, but it's not gonna matter because the alcohol is gonna be flowing and we're gonna be having a good time.
Yeah, and yes, those tickets might be really, really expensive, but wherever you're watching, just be as rowdy as possible. If you're in the stadium, let's make up for those casuals that may be there and definitely just overpower this entire stadium. And
this is a warning to all the corporate vultures and the neutrals that are buying up the tickets on the resale market.
Yeah.
They don't care if they wave a flag in front of you. Don't complain.
Yep.
Nothing will happen.
Beer will absolutely get on you. We will yell in your ear, but yeah. But before we go, let us know where the people can find you on the internet.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at Devon You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at Devon Devon, the number 4 and then real. So Devon for real on Instagram and Twitter.
All right, and Mark.
On Twitter, I'm Nichols Odian. On Instagram, I'm Nichols at Night. You might also see the name Slim Nichols. So.
There we go. There we
People
go.
with their confusing social media.
Right. But thank you guys for showing up and
the 5 strikes.
Absolutely.
And that was our match preview. And let's get into our question of the day.
And guys, it is the Cup final. It's the end of the season. And to be a bit humble, just in case, our question this week is, if Atlanta United does not win MLS Cup, do you consider this season a success? I think for me, yes, in the sense that it's ended a 2-year run with Tata Martino that's defined this club and shows what this club wants to be and where it's going. Obviously, you want to cap it off with that MLS Cup and have all that hard work really pay off with both Tata and potentially Miguel Almiron leaving at the end of this year. That being said, I really want to get my hands on that cup. But I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say. If we don't win MLS Cup, is this season still a success? Get down in the comments below and let us know what you guys think.
But guys, that's it for us today. But before we go, we really want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and that we are so appreciative of all the views, all the subscribers, all the likes, all the love that you give us in person when you meet us. Just every person that has just given us any sort of
interaction at all
is beautiful.
Yeah.
And we're growing just like the team, and big things are coming. A lot of off-season content is on its way as well. I mean, this is the pretty much last episode of the season proper, but we will have that recap, of course, and a ton more stuff to look forward to, and we can't wait to make that for you guys to see. But yeah, I mean, just remember, guys, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe already. Remember to smash that like button, share this video because it really does help us a lot. And for Tanner McLeod, I'm AJ. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Up the 5 stripes.
Let's
Come
go.
on, boys!